Welcome to the Mockingcast, the podcast of Mockingbird Ministries. I'm David Zoll, your host, and in a few moments, I'll be joined by my co-hosts, Sarah Condon and RJ Heyman. We come to you every other week to discuss a few of the places where we currently see grace and its absence playing out in unexpected and compelling ways. We're glad to have you with us.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. God.
Well, I come to you live from the Twilight Zone. Since we last recorded, my kids have been in school for a total of 1 day.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
That's
That
rough.
was,
Since we recorded, yeah, I guess that's true.
Aaron and I,
my
we recorded this
goodness.
right before a
You
huge
poor
snowstorm.
man.
And let's just say it did not disappoint the actual amount of snow, but it was disappointing. But the ice level
Ice
and the
was
sort of persistence.
For real.
Sarah, you had to go to a hotel, right? You guys,
Yeah, we
lost
were
power.
out
You
of
have heat
power
again? Do
all
you have
week.
heat? Yeah.
Yeah, we have it now. We have it here. We don't have it at the church yet. But yeah, we were out of power for quite a long time. I guess our kids have been in school 2 days since the last time we talked. So yeah, just one more day than you.
Wow.
Yeah, we spent our time on Broadway in Nashville, which is not a thing I ever do or really want to. But they had a hotel down there at the Home 2 Suites, and so we got their biggest room, and we brought our dogs, and we had our kids, and like I felt really lucky that we had it.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you guys, so they have a free breakfast bar there, which was such a blessing.
Was it real eggs? It wasn't like the powdered eggs. It was like
It was probably
actual-
powdered. I could give a shit, RJ.
I can't.
I was
I
like,
can't do
I didn't
powdered
have to
eggs. Can't
cook
do powdered eggs.
this.
Yes.
It's
okay.
warm.
Okay.
But like everyone was there, like literally at like we saw
like a huge slumber
friends and
party.
neighbors, like yeah, and
That sounds awesome.
and you know who else was there? I looked over and I saw this like just like me, tired mom. We hadn't even put on like our peptides on our face yet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, damn, she's really familiar. Where do I know her from? And I was like, oh my God, it's Clarissa Explains It All. It's Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Melissa Joan Hart is having the free breakfast at the Home 2 Suites with us.
That's
Because she
incredible.
too probably didn't have power at her house.
Wow.
Clarissa
And I'm
explains it all.
freaking out. Like, I want to say so many things to her about how like safe she made it to be like a quirky weirdo in middle school.
Please tell me you did. Please tell me.
I kept it together because she was
Oh,
like, here's what I
that's
love.
disappointing.
She looked so normal and she was surrounded by like such a big, like obviously her family.
Mhm.
And it just made me really happy for her. And also I was like, man, we
Did
are
anyone
really
else recognize her?
no.
See, that would have been
No.
perfect. Oh, it's not like she was being mobbed. You could have been like the
I
one.
know.
Oh,
And
this
she
is so
I
great.
did have a moment where I was like, she probably likes, like, I imagine there's a lot of women my age that are like, oh my gosh, you were like my one last hope in Mississippi, you know? But anyway, it was such a funny thing. And so most days the hotel, I mean, this is so Broadway, the hotel across from us, they had let their employees stay there with a contingency that they were going to work. And so we had lunch every day at Margaritaville. And I like had a beer, ate a cheeseburger in paradise. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, we're
the
just going to make
dream.
the best of this. Yeah.
But it does
so-
feel like the
so
Twilight Zone
jealous.
a little bit. I think you're sort of like
Totally.
you lose your bearings. There's no
Totally. Oh, I mean, there were so many things I could be doing, and every day that afternoon related to probably the single beer I had, I would climb into our warm bed and watch Below Deck on Bravo. Yeah. I watched enough of it that Josh started to ask questions. I was like, we're just gonna be very not wholesome for these few days.
Wow.
So anyway.
Well, we watched some good movies too, but I'm like, it's like day 5. It was 9. We had a total of 9 snow days in a row, which is,
crazy, Dave.
it gets really ripe in the house, especially with 3 boys. Or we had because our third child was there for a good portion of it. So, I mean, we had fun. Because it was ice. The sledding was extremely fast, and
Yes.
that was an upside to it. But it also meant that it didn't go away. day ever.
Yeah.
So, that was I feel rejuvenated the second we put him on the bus, our youngest on the bus yesterday at after a 2-hour delay. Well, let's just who's keeping score,
Right.
But it
You're
just
like, so we only get 5 hours and 27 minutes without you here.
anyway. RJ, you can't relate. You're in sunny Florida.
No, I'm
How you been?
so jealous.
Oh no, RJ.
I've been working my ass off. I want to be like just chilling
know. That is like the
at
thing
home
where
to
you live.
suites for 10 days and watching
Yeah.
a movie. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I mean, we also had some cold weather, but sort of the thing where, on Saturday, it was going to be in the 30s here on Sunday,
Yeah.
the 30s and sunny, no precipitation of any kind anywhere in
Yeah.
sight. And people are like, are we going to cancel church tomorrow? I'm like,
Oh.
absolutely not. What, are you
No.
insane? But it was like,
No.
31 degrees when I got here at, 5 a.m. on Sunday morning or whatever. We survived.
Mhm.
It was the iguanapocalypse. I probably ran over like 10 iguanas on my way to church.
Oh no.
And even you saw the thing I posted on like Instagram, right? Like my wife comes out, there's this gigantic iguana just on our back patio, because that's what happens when the weather gets cold. They sort of pass out and just drop from the trees. And
What?
and if it doesn't stay cold for too warm, they reanimate and come back to life. But it was so cold that a lot of them just died, and also they're invasive. So some people like protected them. A lot of people gathered them up and turned them into the Department of Environmental Protection for euthanization.
Wow, this is totally news to me that this is a
You
problem.
really don't know about it? It is a
Well,
real
it's like
thing.
that thing in
I'm
Texas
obsessed
with
with
like the
those.
wild hogs that sort of
The
invade
Yeah.
javelinas.
Yeah.
But it's
That people shoot
iguanas.
from helicopters with machine guns.
My uncle loves to do that.
Lila
yes.
Ontiveros. I'm going to give a shout out to Lila
Yeah.
Ontiveros, who used to run tours on those helicopters. She lives in Houston. She's that girl's no joke, Lila.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it was fine for humans, but it was a legit iguanapocalypse.
Oh my
Iguanapocalypse.
gosh. Can
Yeah.
you eat
No.
iguana? The Mississippi
Of course,
is
people were cooking
dying
them.
to
They
know.
were
Okay.
cooking them. They were
Okay.
barbecue. I saw that on Facebook. I've not sampled iguana myself,
Okay.
but it was.
Okay.
it
Well,
was a
I'm gonna
whole
be there in
thing.
a few weeks, so you should throw one in the
I'm
freezer
so
for me and
excited.
Dave.
February
Mhm.
22nd.
We'll
Sarah
grill it.
Conning's going to come
I
to Holy
know.
Trinity, drop some bombs.
I'm so excited to go to Florida right
You should
now.
be. It's going to be amazing.
I keep
It's gonna
checking
be-
the weather and
yeah.
showing my family. Yeah.
And then Sarah and I are speaking together too at a conference there in
Yeah.
Jupiter, Fall
Yep.
and Freezing.
Awesome.
I want to. We do the Mockingbird Conference in New York is the 23rd to the 25th. It is people are signing up. Early bird registration is now
April.
over of April.
Sorry. Okay.
The 23rd to the 25th of April. Early bird is over, but that means all tiers of registration are open. And as we mentioned last time, RJ Heyman and Aaron Zimmerman will be running a sort of a pre-conference, renewing your local congregation, Mockingbird style seminar, tutorial, etc. Gripe Fest. I think it's going to be fantastic. They've got a lot to say, and it's filling up, RJ. So if
cool.
people
So
want to be a
glad.
Praise
part of that,
God. Okay.
That's awesome.
that happens the morning.
I'm just going to
of
tell stories
Thursday the 23rd.
about mistakes I've made and God being faithful anyway.
Yeah.
That's going to be the content.
No, it'll
Guys,
be really
before
good, RJ.
before we
Yeah.
jump into the episode itself, though, I do want to dedicate this. This
Oh, yeah.
episode is dedicated to the memory of our friend and loyal listener and just supporter and colleague, Derek Sweatman. Derek was pastor in Atlanta Christian Church, and always was at so many Mockingbird conferences, very active on social media in always the sort of most positive, encouraging ways. Derek had colon cancer, and he died on January 23rd. It was sudden. He was sort of he was not in remission. He'd just gone back into chemo, but he was the most lovely guy, huge music person. He was a real deadhead, though I didn't hold that against him, but he sent me like my favorite T-shirt that I have, which is the Tourists, which is Annie Lennox's first band. He just randomly had these printed and sent me one. He was
my
that kind of a
gosh.
guy, and I know a bunch of people went to his church and listened to the Mockingcast, but Derek, I was totally caught off guard by this, and it's a major. He was at our Charlottesville conference. So his wife, Mickey, I don't know if she's listening, but he's survived by her and their children, and their congregation is really hurting. But what a blessing that guy was to so many, but me personally. Sarah, you knew Derek.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the wonderful Episcopal priest in Oklahoma City that died.
Everett Lees, yeah.
Yeah, and how both of those guys were guys that like I saw at the conference, and then later it was like, hey, we got to hang out. Like I didn't get to spend any time with you. And then both of them died within months of the conference. And
yeah, I think that, and Derek was early 50s.
Oh, and Derek was so funny, you know? I mean, we totally would like go back and forth on Instagram, and like classic Sarah for better or worse. Like one of the last things I wrote to him, like he was like, I was like, dude, like you were at Charlottesville, like we should have hung out. Like, where were you? And he was like, well, you know, next time. And I wrote in all caps, you have to stay alive, dude. And he was like, I'm trying, you know, like just, yeah.
New Year's resolution he did not follow, unfortunately.
Yeah, it just sucks. So, yeah, sucks for his family, sucks for his congregation. I mean, just the kind of guy he was, like, I can't imagine the chasm that's there for them now and always will be.
Great preacher, but a pastor. I mean,
yeah, a real pastor. Yeah, you can be a good preacher all day, but if you're not a pastor, it's not worth anything. So
he wrote a bunch of pieces for Mockingbird, but this episode is dedicated to him, and we're kind of, in fact, the theme of death always is part of and grief and loss is always part of the Mockingcast, and hopefully, it doesn't make it dreary, but
we don't care. I don't care.
This is part of this. The episode we have today. We're closing in on Ash Wednesday. I thought we'd start with this piece on aging and faces that's you sent my way. I put it in the Weekender this past week. It's from Valerie Monroe in Allure magazine, and she asked the question: is the backlash to facial conformity finally upon us? And she writes this: I had the extraordinary experience of watching the movie Hamnet the other day.
So good. Everyone see it.
Extraordinary, not only because of the gorgeous and evocative cinematography, the deeply moving emotional integrity, but because of the incomparable expressions of feeling, from suspicion to anticipation, joy, unfathomable grief, and finally ravenous awe, on the face of the 36-year-old actor Jesse Buckley. Which got me to thinking, what is a face for? And what might be the consequences of the current trend toward a kind of facial conformity resulting from a desire to imitate a narrow beauty standard prominent on social media? I wonder if we're finally starting to see a real backlash to the prevalence of conformity. There is certainly a roster of celebrities refusing to succumb to extreme facial work. As one astute observer asks, going into 2026, maybe it's not an anomaly to see a woman over 40 or 70 looking her age on screen. Stars like Kerry Russell, Claire Danes, and Olivia Colman on the younger end, Parker Posey, Robin Wright, and Jodie Foster in the mid-range, more mature luminaries like Kathy Bates, Helen Mirren, and Jean Smart. None of them have taken the Kris Jenner route. That feels like more than just a handful of resistance. But then Monroe goes on. She asks, what is a face for? Well, starting with the completely obvious, a face is what enables your friend to pick you out of a crowd, recognition. If you're a toddler lost in a department store, it allows you to realize with desperate surprise that the adult hand you just grabbed does not belong to the face you trust. Bonding, which is usually the result of facial attunement in babies. In which case, your face will communicate unequivocally to that strange adult that you are not comfortable with their unfamiliar companionship. So faces are also for the communication of emotions. All of which suggests that the human face has evolved to be read. Our physiognomy, including individual asymmetries, our expressions, the qualities of our complexion, all encode valuable information about our age, our mental health and physical health, our lived experience and personality. What happens when these cues are greatly diminished or erased by plastic surgery or other aesthetic interventions? The face is so important to our social fabric that there's an area of the brain called the fusiform face area devoted exclusively to decoding faces. But here's what might be the most revealing detail about how your brain reads a face. It's not by examining it at rest. The brain interprets patterns of movement, tension at the corners of the mouth, a slight widen at the eyes, a lift of the eyebrow. As the options for facial fiddling have become more accessible, the face is increasingly regarded as an image to be perfected. But aesthetic treatments that sharpen the contours of the face to give them more contrast in photos can reduce and distort expression. Aesthetic interventions that reduce wrinkles and facial asymmetries like crow's feet diminish the cues that can signal warmth, wisdom, and happiness, the very things we rely on a face to communicate. A face identifies us as a person alive and with presence. A face is irreducibly unique. And yet through it, we can trace the bones and beauty of our ancestors. As we age, a face can serve as a lovely, richly imbued representation of past harmonies and discordance, essentially a coda to a well-lived life. Now, before I throw it over to you, Sarah, because I just want to give the qualification that this is a very freighted topic for people.
Sure. Especially for women.
A friend of mine who will remain nameless preached a sermon in which he talked a little bit about this subject, and the blowback was immediate and intense.
So I'm just going to talk, and you guys aren't going to say anything.
Sarah, you go for it. Go for it.
That was my plan, Sarah. So yeah.
Let's hear.
Well, I do want to start by talking about Hamnet because Jessie Buckley's character is just so expressive. Her face is so expressive, and she's such an interesting and unique person. I mean, the actress I'm sure is lovely, but the character she's playing and feels things so deeply. And so when you see her go through great joy and great passion and great sorrow, it is incredible to watch. I'm also thinking right now of Catherine O'Hara of blessed memory, who we recently lost. So sick of, as I saw on Instagram, all of my Christmas moms dying because she and Diane Keaton have both died.
Oh, gosh.
But I saw a video of her recently taken where she was clearly in the airport and someone walked up to her with like a video camera, and she looked just like a normal woman in her 70s without any work done, no makeup on, and she was so like delighted to talk to whoever this person was. And they said, what's your greatest role? Like, what's been your greatest role in your life? And I think it's safe to assume that Catherine O'Hara was like probably a pretty big feminist and, sort of ascribed all those values. And she said, my greatest role in my life, the one I want to be remembered for, is that I was a mother to my children. And her face was so like my face, my mom's face, my grandmother's face. Like, it was so like, oh yeah, this lady has raised children. Like, she has done the work in addition to her magnificent career. And I find a lot of solace in it. I also want to say, like, most of my friends use Botox. Most of my friends do filler. It's not, especially my Houston girlies. Okay. It's not like I'm not surrounded by people who do it. And it's not like I will say that I'll never do it. I mean, a time may come. My mother was the first person I knew to get filler and Botox, and she did it for our wedding. So, I mean, it's, but we have like lost the face in so many ways. And, Jane wrote about this really well, the flattening of beauty. Like, everyone starts to look the same.
In the beauty issue of the magazine. It's an incredible essay.
Yeah. I mean, like, after all these, like procedures, like there becomes an ideal beauty that everyone sort of seeks out, and then everyone looks the same. And there's such a sadness about this. I mean, I love the question, what is a face for? It's kind of like, I mean, it's trite, but it's that like everybody has a swimsuit body because you have a body and you can wear a swimsuit. It's like, what is a face for? A face is to express and to show emotion and to, communicate. I'm also thinking of a piece, article I preached about. It's from a book called 14 Talks to Have Before Age 14. I can't remember the name of the writer, but it's, it's parenting advice. And she talks about like how good it is to have Botox in your forehead. This was so interesting to me because teenagers don't have the ability. I think they use their amygdala, or I can't remember what it is, but they
definitely use their amygdala.
Yeah, it's just their amygdala, so they're not using the reasonable part of their brain. And so when they did this MRI research,
the lizard, the iguana brain.
Yes,
Sorry, yeah.
And they put kids in an MRI and they showed them faces and said, "Tell us what the expression is." Half of the time, the teenagers got it wrong. 50% of the time.
Wow.
Whereas adults got it right 100% of the time, which is so rare in any sort of clinical research. And what that tells us is that if your brow is furrowed at all, they immediately think you're mad at me or I've done something wrong. And I kind of love that as an affirmation for moms to get Botox. Like, I love that she's a chapter that's like, get Botox. That'll help your relationship with your kid. But yeah, it's just faces are so important. And this question of what is a face even for is such a beautiful question.
Rutger, where do you land on this? You're married to a lady who understands some of this stuff.
You're married to a lady, RJ,
and I'm in sort of ground zero for like all this
You're
kind
in
of stuff.
West Palm Beach, yeah.
I guess the first, it's South Florida in general. I just want to name first of all like how titanically unfair this all is. That men get to be silver foxes, and Leonardo DiCaprio gets to have a dad bod, and Gerard Depardieu
turn into Jack Nicholson.
Gets to be a sex symbol, exactly. And like Robert Redford can have a face that looks like a dried up riverbed, and they're all sex symbols, and that's it's not fair. It's just completely unfair. And I don't, as you were talking, Sarah, Dave, it reminded me of that scene in the Barbie movie when Margot Robbie sees the old lady sitting on the bench and is just like, "You are so beautiful." And I guess the other question it raises, and this is kind of this is a bit dangerous question, so we could absolutely cut it. My wife will tell me if we need to cut it. Is who are you doing it for? Whose gaze are we trying to attract or affirm, or what's the motivation behind it all? What are the voices?
I think I think about that question every day, RJ, when I'm thinking about my face, because I think I have had the thought at some point, well, I like literally look like I'm like, quote, not taking care of myself because I have wrinkles on my face and age spots. Like literally like not taking care of myself. Like, and like we see a lady on the streets and she's got bags and she's not showering. Like, will it be such an accepted part of like, I mean, this is the wrong word to use, but hygiene, that I will look like I don't care about myself?
Yeah.
Well, I thought you were going to say something different, because there have been times when I've looked at my wife, at Jamie, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'll say it like, "Baby, you are so beautiful." And she'll be like, "What the hell are you talking about? I have no makeup on. I haven't taken a shower. I haven't,
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, like, okay. I just don't know if men are clueless. Men are pretty clueless, right?
Yeah. So I think the reframing of that is, will women look at me and think that I don't take care of myself?
I want to say the same basic thing that RJ said, in that like the titanic pressure that women live under around their face, from themselves, from the media, from men, from the whole world. How can I not feel compassion? Like, I don't have judgment for people that are, I don't think I know many women middle-aged who don't do Botox. I'll just say that right now. And certainly none of them are allowing their hair to go gray. Like, it's not, it's a
clear.
Oh, honey, you've never seen my natural hair color.
But I wouldn't judge anyone for that, because I think that life is hard, and it's a good thing to, you want to feel good. These are little things. I trim my eyebrows, I pluck my nose hairs.
But there's a difference between, I mean, I think that's what a little bit of also what we have to say here is, there is a difference between that and then completely not looking like yourself.
Yeah. What I hear Valerie Monroe saying is that it's the imperfections that convey love and connect and that it's this is a low anthropology kind of 101 type of thing. That in fact, we connect with others not at our point of strength, but through the little wrinkles and foibles and the strange things about our face. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. But there is no place where the law, the little L law, is more operative than in the your face must be unblemished and perfect.
Right.
The crazy thing is that it's impossible to ever achieve that perfection. Like,
and if you do, it's weird. Like perfection is just like, it's jarring.
Yeah. You guys, I mean, I have a lot of time for the actress Jamie Lee Curtis. She's a big recovery person, and she's become an advocate for sort of letting herself age on. She tells this story. She told a story on 60 Minutes last year that Sam Bush used in a sermon, which I'd never heard. She said that in 1985, she starred with John Travolta in the movie Perfect. You know, it's called Perfect. Oh, my gosh. And the movie was not perfect. No. It was really bad. But as a physical specimen, she was sort of at the very top of her game. She was, I think, in like a leotard the whole time because it was about aerobics maybe. And yet she said, she tells on the set, there was a cinematographer who criticized her eyes for looking baggy and refused to shoot the scene that day. So as soon as the movie finished, she went and got plastic surgery. Now, she was 25 years old, and she was cast in the movie Perfect because she looked perfect. But she's living proof, Sam would say, that perfection is unattainable. And so she instantly regretted it. And that's where her compassion for women comes from, but also her advocacy. She said, okay, come on, let's allow ourselves to age a little bit. And I think that there's something gracious about that. It's sad to me that women don't feel this permission. I also understand the push and pull of wanting to feel good about yourself. And so it's like, it's this kind of both and, but I think that the bottom line is that Buckley can connect. Her face is this sort of genius level instrument of communication, of connection, but it's not because it's perfect. It's because of the ways in which
it's human,
strangely, interestingly lopsided. When people say you have an interesting face, I mean, I always think of, when it comes to men, I think of W.H. Auden, or Mick Jagger. You look at their face today, and it has that Robert Redford, like it is a baseball mitt, it is cracked old leather, but somehow that conveys to people not just that they've lived, but that they've suffered.
Yeah.
And I trust what they're going to say.
Wisdom that comes with suffering. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I have to say about this. And I also, this time, everyone, you can direct your emails to Sarah Condon, and whose skin looks fabulous today and unblemished. I gotta say,
it's hyaluronic acid, guys. It's not hard. You can put some on too.
I gotta memorize that. Hyaluronic acid. Okay.
Let's move from that into something about the conclusion of aging. This was in Commonweal, written by Jacob Lupfer.
Dave, is this about death? I haven't looked, and you're calling it the conclusion of aging?
It is indeed. It's called Ash Wednesday Asks Nothing. Ash Wednesday Asks Nothing. Lupfer writes, where I grew up in Central Florida, Ash Wednesday never quite fit. Azaleas were in full bloom. Spring training baseball was beginning. But after I moved to Massachusetts, the season and the rite, R-I-T-E, spoke the same language. The air itself seemed penitential. And he talks about, going to an Ash Wednesday service in Boston and saying, what I received was the knowledge that I am finite, I am breakable, I cannot order my soul. He then backs up and says this. He says, most of my life, I tried to understand myself through two great systems, religion and psychology, each promising transformation, neither able to deliver it. Christianity gave me a grammar of sin, grace, and redemption. Psychology renamed the same terrain with trauma, repression, and repair. I moved between them the way a person switches languages, hoping that fluency in either might finally render my life legible. But both required an optimism I could never inhabit. In church, the creeds were beautiful, the liturgies orderly, but the chasm between doctrine and my interior life never closed. Forgiveness remained theoretical. Reconciliation stayed just beyond reach. I absorbed the words. The transformation never came. Therapy carried its own promise. Integration would follow understanding. I believed that for years through a succession of clinicians revealing the vocabulary of patterns and wounds and insights. But understanding did not move the axis of my life. Interpretation expanded, interchange did not. Eventually, I saw that these two systems shared an unspoken conviction about what a self is capable of. Both assumed that the person I was could become the person I was meant to be. Whatever their differences, they converged on a story in which I should, by now, have become someone else. I hadn't. This is what made Ash Wednesday intelligible to me. It did not offer a new explanation or a better technique. It asked nothing of me at all. It offered no promise that anything would get better. It required no narrative of growth or progress. It met me exactly where faith and therapy faltered, not at the point of improvement, but at the point of truth. Remember that you are dust is not despairing, it is simply accurate. We confront the creatureliness we spend our lives avoiding, even in the pew and the consulting room. It speaks beneath doctrine and diagnosis. It speaks from a place far older than Freud and even older than theology. Ash Wednesday does not interpret our condition. It reveals it. It is the one moment in the year that does not ask me to assemble myself first. After so many failed attempts at coherence, that feels at last like mercy. Remember that thou art dust does not condemn. It clears the ground. And in that moment, for reasons I may never fully understand, I find that I can hear God. I found this piece to be very stirring, very extremely well written. As a Lent sort of slight skeptic at this point, I do the idea that Ash Wednesday doesn't ask anything of you, and that therein lies its potency and the sort of way in which you can hear God. I found this to be quite a moving piece. It allowed me a way into the season that I lack. But what does it say to you guys, if anything?
Oh my God, I'm not ready for Ash Wednesday. This feels rude. I'm just like, what? Now it's Ash Wednesday? Oh my God. Okay.
How dare you?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'm ever ready for Ash Wednesday. So it's always like a bit of a shock, I guess is the point. But it's I think I've talked about this before, but when I worked at the hospital, it was like I remember them saying like, okay, Ash Wednesday is our biggest day in the chaplaincy department. And it was because everybody asked for ashes. And so like I had the experience of putting ashes on like women who were in hijabs. Like, because they were like, I'll take all your remedies. And that they didn't have to bring anything to that I just gave it away, was really moving for me. But it makes me think of how when mom and dad died, Dave, and you asked me, it's funny because I just talked about this moment, but when we were talking and you asked me why I didn't give a eulogy, and I said the rest of my life will be a eulogy. Gosh, it feels like when people die, I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but I definitely had this experience with my parents, and I've encountered it in ministry a lot. When people die and you just don't want to have a funeral. Like you're just so sad that you're like, oh God, one more thing to make me sadder. Like there is a real, I understand now why people just don't do anything. I didn't before. And then you do it and you realize how necessary it was.
Yeah.
Like that's what Ash Wednesday is.
Yeah. We're in a situation, a season here at the church, which seems to be like every other season, meaning like every other week, where there's a death of a child and the death of a father who's a friend of mine who's just went to hospice, and dear
Dave.
and a listener to this podcast actually, and he's it's omnipresent, and just to spend our lives avoiding it. I understand why, and I you can't just sit there all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
there is a relief. I've used the word relief intentionally. There is a relief to at least putting aside a day where we all acknowledge that there's no fillers in the world that are going to help us when it comes to the grave, and that I don't know, to speak that truth aloud, and then to still be living after saying it can feel like grace to people.
It's just like, it's such an unexpectedly soft place. Like I have a friend, really, 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 really good friend, who has had cancer so many times, and she's like, I don't know, she's back on chemo and she's in bed a lot. And I talked to her husband and I was like, man, I got to figure out what to do for her. She's not really wanting to eat, and all that stuff. We know what all that stuff can mean. And no one wants to say that out loud, which I totally understand. I was like, what can I do? And so I like found the nicest bed sheets we could afford and sent them to her this week. Cause I was like, at least I can make the bed feel better. And there's something about Ash Wednesday for me that's like makes the bed feel better. It just like softly brings you into the reality of your death. It softly brings you into the reality of how short this is, but also brings you into the reality of how beloved you are.
Yeah. RJ, where you're doing these funerals? What do you think about this?
Yeah.
So it reminded me, as it often does, my Thursday morning men's group that I love. And this morning we were in Genesis chapter 21, where Abraham and Sarah finally get the child that God has been promising them for decades. And they're so happy. But it comes on the heels of some very, very bad behavior in Genesis chapter 20 of their own bad behavior. And then right after they get the baby, Sarah is like, Hagar, Ishmael, they got to go. Like, send them away. Get out of here. And so the point was kind of like God's faithfulness and his promises do not depend on our good behavior, and then someone asked, okay, so Abraham screwed up over and over and over again, and God was faithful to him. But Adam and Eve make one mistake. They eat the fruit, and God like sends them out of the garden and curses them to death. Like, isn't that a little harsh? Like, what the hell, And my associate DJ made the point, that when God sends them away, he says, he sends them away, and it's not really I don't know. It is kind of a punishment, but it's also like so that they won't reach out and eat the tree of life and live forever. And then in some ways, once sin has entered the world, and once shame and accusation and broken relationships and fear and all these things have entered the world, death is a mercy. Because I don't want to live here forever.
Right.
Like this guy on Netflix, the man who wants to live forever. What are you talking about?
That hair too. Yeah.
And I don't care how much money you have, you're going to blow it someday.
Yeah.
So, and I went to a funeral last week that I did not officiate. Actually, it was a member of our church whose husband attended another church, and the pastor there said something which I thought was powerful. He said, in our world, no one wants to talk about death. It's scary. We deny it. We shove it to the side. But he said, when you believe in Jesus and you're a Christian, you believe these promises are true, that your last breath on earth is your best breath, because the next breath you're going to take will be in the presence of Jesus. And I'm like, yes. Now, does that mean that death is easy? Of course not. It's hard. It's painful. We lose people we love. And I do kind of think it's a mercy. It's like, let's take me home. Let's get him out of there and go to a place where things are going to be better forever, and not just in this vale of tears, So,
Dave, I think about what our friend Ginger said a lot to me, and she said it yesterday when I was calling her about something. She goes, I don't know what I thought life was going to be, but I didn't think it was going to be this hard. Yeah.
It's like what you said about marriage, Sarah, at Mockingbird last year, that I didn't realize that I was signing up to suffer with another person for the rest of my life. Like, that's what marriage is. Just suffer together. It's better to suffer together than suffer alone.
Suffer with? Yeah.
I think I just want to say before we move on to the next thing, the movie, the Ash Wednesday movie of the decade from where I'm sitting, and I'm not sure I could totally recommend it because it's a wild horror movie. But 28 years later, has this ossuary where it's this man, the whole world has died. Basically, it's a post-apocalyptic film, and he's dignified people by basically getting their bones and making this something beautiful out of it. And being surrounded by death, it looks macabre, but it actually is the only way he can remain hopeful. And he's played by Ray Fiennes, and in this brilliant performance. And I won't give away what happens because it's pretty ghastly, but there is something to this. His whole thing is memento mori. Like everyone has died. I could die at any point. I want to be surrounded by death as much as possible so that I can live and not just spend my life afraid of it. So there's something, and it's more of a secular idea there, I think, but it's a very vividly drawn, shall we say.
But also there's like religious buildings that were built from the bones of people who died in the plague. Like it's also like a deeply Christian, like deeply like we are like the communion of saints. Like there's something very beautiful about that. And also like nothing's more like goth or horror than Ash Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll never forget when we were visiting Rome and I was in 13 or 14. My father insisted we go to the catacombs where all the Christians hid out, and you go to this one room and it's an ossuary. It's just skulls everywhere, and no one warned me, shall we say, that this is part of our faith. And it felt very, at the time, it felt very Catholic, but I think about it often. It was because it was this bold declaration.
Yeah.
Sort of death is not to be afraid of.
To live is Christ, to die is gain.
Well, when we talk about that foolishness of how we look at death and this sort of omnipresent weakness that we're surrounded with, this is a very funny and also wise article that Todd Brewer wrote for Mockingbird this past week called A Church of Cringe. A Church of Cringe. Great title. He says, church can be a strange place sometimes. Music is always an easy target for the weirdness. It's usually composed of volunteers or part-time staff. The organist who plays A Mighty Fortress Is Our God painfully slow, probably didn't have time to rehearse it in between the piano lessons she teaches. The fresh-faced contemporary music leader definitely doesn't know what he's doing, but working with the youth group 3/4 time probably doesn't help matters. Sometimes the weirdness is intentional, of course. Todd writes, I once attended a Pentecost service where the processional featured polyester birds on 20-foot poles, flailing about above the heads of worshipers like background stage dressing on a Broadway play. It was dramatic, but not the kind intended, because the birds kept coming within inches of hitting the chandeliers hanging from the ceilings. Todd then says, I am, to put it mildly, what my neighbors call a professional Christian. With numerous academic degrees in theology and a couple decades of different ministry experience, I am an unusual churchgoer by any measure. It is difficult to not notice when something is amiss on a Sunday morning. It is difficult not to become a religious Statler and Waldorf, the Muppet guys, sitting in my elevated pew of judgment. But the Muppet analogy only goes so far, because I've also deserved plenty of negative reviews myself from the peanut gallery. I've been that unprepared part-time worship leader. I've been that preacher hastily scribbling sermon notes on the half-hour drive to church that morning. I have made bulletins with multiple typos, left microphones on mute, spilled communion wine, and announced the wrong hymn number. You might say that everyone makes mistakes, that even pastors deserve grace. To an extent, that's true. But making grace a backstop for failure still upholds perfection as the impossible expectation. You can't simultaneously believe in grace while demanding the excellency of corporate worship.
RJ, this whole article's for you.
Grace doesn't fix our mistakes like a release valve that expels impurities. Grace instead turns the ideas of perfection and excellence on their heads. It does not make allowances for inefficiencies, but nullifies the economy of efficiency altogether. From its very beginnings, Christianity has been a religion of cringe. The New Testament has a great deal to say about evil in the church, but when it comes to the qualifications and performance of its first leaders, their resumes are terribly thin. This is a beautiful feature of early Christianity rather than a sign of its immaturity. Matthew may have been a scribe, but the rest of the disciples were uneducated fishermen or common laborers. For their new jobs as apostles of Jesus, they possessed no transferable skills. They were not gifted orators or trained in rhetoric. In the years spent learning from Jesus, they were most known for their dumb questions. Did this motley crew of disciples grow into their new roles as ambassadors for Jesus? Maybe, but probably not. The rise of the early church was always attributed to the work of the Spirit and never once to the apostles' skill sets. Their ineptitude was the prerequisite for the power of God to be revealed. Somehow these unsophisticated, uneducated, bumbling band of fools changed the world. When Sunday morning feels like a well-performed show, it says that imperfect sinners need not apply.
Mm.
The more dignified the worship, the less approachable God becomes to those who feel they have no dignity. God chooses fools to
Come on,
shame
Todd.
fools. Yeah. He chooses the lowly and despised to overturn the haughty and powerful. He did not enter into Rome in triumph, but stumbled up a hill to Golgotha to save the world. Those who gather in praise of this crucified carpenter cannot do so in the name of excellent sophistication or even beauty. God does not need our perfection. In fact, he far prefers the humble offering of our cringe. The only reverence he desires is the contrite heart that clings to his grace and nothing else. Yeah, come on, Todd. Keep it going. I love it. I think it's beautiful.
I feel very accused. I feel very seen, accused, judged.
We strive for some degree of at least competency on Sundays, but I've always told I've always maintained, at least, and easy for me to say on the sidelines, but to say, if our church band ever gets too good, we might have lost sight of the gospel. Like you need the old lady playing the bass and missing a few notes. We have the evening we have a guitarist whose son has a Down syndrome, and he always plays along with the rhythm, and it doesn't detract from the music. It enhances the whole experience. And I don't say that to be kind of performatively inclusive or something. It actually makes you feel more comfortable, and there you smile and you think, all of us are here, and there's grace for that. But I don't know. I know it's it's easy to say, because when a church service is truly bad, and it can become distracting and anxiety producing, I will say. But then he also talks about how St. Paul was a great writer, but known as a kind of not a very good speaker. The Corinthians thought he
killed a guy with his
good
teaching. I mean, literally killed a guy.
Yeah. So I don't know. Let's hear from you guys. What do you think?
I just don't think I've ever been to a truly bad church service.
Really?
So I would start there. I don't think I've ever been to a church service that it was so unorganized and such a mess, and that it was the worst, and I didn't get literally anything out of it. And I have been to some shitty little church services. I mean, I remember being in rural New Mexico with my kids, and we got up one Sunday morning and took them to this little bitty church, and the music could not have been worse. The sermon made no sense. I mean, there was no real beauty in the church, in the way that churches in the West can sometimes be so recently built.
Mm-hmm.
And I wept for half the service.
Aww.
I just don't know that I've ever, sometimes I think the worse the church service is, the more moving it is for me, because everyone's sort of in the room together. I mean, this past Sunday, we were all in the gymnasium, and, we in Nashville, music is a thing here at church, and we have a fabulous music program, but we literally had our organist on a keyboard, and, she's the world's youngest organist. She's in her 20s, and married the sound guy at our church, because they've known each other there since they were kids, which is the sweetest thing. But she's playing the keyboard, and I look over, and her parents are there, and they're holding their newborn baby, and it just, there was coffee in the back, and of course kids are in the gym, so they're wildly uncontrollable, and it was just so beautiful. I just, yeah. And that's not to ever say that doing it really well is not also moving and not also beautiful. I mean, I think we're remiss to have this conversation and not, and this is me being a real Christian woman, not talk about the history of Anglo-Catholicism, and how part of the reason that, Anglo-Catholics were so passionate was because they wanted beautiful churches and beautiful liturgy for poor people, for poor, uneducated people. So I think there's it's as in anything, it's not black and white, but I just don't know if I've ever been to a bad church service. And I've been to Pentecostal service. I mean, I grew up I've done it all. And there's something for me about looking around at this room full of like absolute weirdos, just like we're all like, just like there in the presence of God, like doing our best to reveal our worst. That's like so moving to me, you know? I mean, I think this question, what is a face for? What is worship for?
Yeah, that's a good link there. But Rutger, clearly the rubber meets the road for you.
Come on. Come on.
Well, it reminds me what you're saying, Sarah. It reminds me this past Sunday I used that Lester Bangs quote from Almost Famous where he says to a young Cameron Crowe, you know, the only true currency in this bankrupt world is what we share with each other when we're uncool.
Oh yeah.
And that's a really beautiful statement on what church is, right? What we share with each other when we're uncool. I would actually say this is really helpful to me, and it's really it's a word of grace to me because you know we just started this new 5 p.m. contemporary service, and we've been going for 3 weeks, and we're kind of trying to figure it out, and it's not quite what we want it to be. I'm like, is it going to work? Is anyone going to come? You know, and it definitely it's filled me with some anxiety, but just this word of like, yeah, it's not going to be perfect. You know, but it is by the grace of God, I hope going to be a place where the Holy Spirit shows up for people that just want to come worship him, you know, no matter how many show up or how the music goes or, and just to like, I don't know, take a deep breath and trust God and move forward. Cause Sunday mornings right now, like they run very well. They're very smooth and they're not perfect. And there are moments of like,
I got to tell you something, RJ.
You say that again?
I got to tell you something.
Tell me.
During the snowstorm, the ice storm, church was canceled.
Oh, yeah.
I tuned in.
That's right. Kate sent me the live stream
Holy
picture.
Trinity in West Palm Beach, and I got to see your smiling face, laugh, and you know, I honestly, perfection was not the first word that came to my mind, but it was
Thank God.
But soulfulness and accessibility and sort of warmth would definitely
that's what
be
we're
in the
going
top.
for. That's absolutely what we're going for. Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway,
RJ, I just like have to say, as your friend, I feel like I've known you a long time, and like you've been really open about, you know, trying things and things failing and things succeeding. That like it's so brave and wonderful that like you are taking this risk of love and doing this service on Sunday nights.
It's
really
you know, Dave, it's
beautiful.
giving me a little New York City church plant PTSD.
I bet.
It's been a while since I did something that like really just didn't work, you know? And the jury is out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember the last time I started a contemporary service. Actually that's not true. In Houston it blew up. But
it
in New York,
did. That was a big
it totally failed, and my life fell apart, and I had to move thousands of miles away. There's no chance of that happening. I'm in a much, you know.
Let me say this. I think that there is a tension here. This isn't just for church people. But we're in the part of the lectionary cycle where the readings are all from 1 Corinthians about the foolishness of the cross and the wisdom of the world. And sometimes I think if you really want to boil down the wisdom of the world, it has to do with this excellence equals virtue, or sort of like if something is done perfectly enough, I will get love. And there's a transactional quality to it that approval equates to performance, or performance equates to acceptance. And
as long as I do everything perfectly, things will be fine.
And so, I mean, I always think of our friend Jacob Smith in New York, who's watched a church after church after church come in that's very polished, and their branding is extremely refined, and it feels like the church for the beautiful people. And he's just sitting there in this sort of wonderful, but also, you know, duct taped together old church, and he's always welcoming in people who've burnt out on those other churches.
Yes.
And it's like, it's almost a ministry. Of course, once they're burnt out on those churches and they come and hear the gospel, then they realize, oh, we don't have to live in New York City. It's then they always leave New York because you're like, life is easier other places. But I think I think of that if you're in any kind of work, you get bound up in this thing that if something's not excellent, then it's not worth doing. But the same thing applies to faces, that applies to worship, that applies to creative artwork, personal expression. Like what's interesting are the imperfections. What does Leonard Cohen say in that song that everyone always quotes? It's like, forget your perfect offering. The crack is where the light gets in. It doesn't mean the crack on its own is beautiful, but guess what? There is a crack, whether it's papered over or not, and that it truly is the foolishness of the cross. That
we
God,
have this treasure in jars of clay. Yeah.
Yes, I'll stop preaching, but I think it's
good.
It's very tempting to me, because I'm also raised in the same milieu that certainly that you were, RJ, where it's like, just just work harder, just perform more, and then you will get what you want, or you will have some kind of payoff. That's the wisdom of the world, because not only because it's sort of like worldly, but because it doesn't actually work. It's not. It doesn't ultimately. We're having Jennifer Brennan Wallace, who's speaking in New York, was just talking to Oprah, and then Good Morning America. Her new book on mattering is so fascinating, but she says basically that there's like a finite number of values that we have a bandwidth for. So if you totally prioritize perfection and achievement, you actually end up sort of deprioritizing or ruling out all of these other forms of mattering that really people that need to have purpose,
that
and
actually
feel like
matter.
they stay alive, and that actually sustain the human being. And we're sort of living in a culture that is so lionized: optimization, productivity, influence, just all the perfection stuff, that there is no room for these. No wonder the fallout is all of this sadness, addiction, and death. So I don't know, I'll get off the high horse, but I think it's spoke to me personally too. Grace and excellence, there's not just a tension there, there's kind of a discrepancy. So
a piece of lore in our family about Jacob Smith, a story that we tell each other pretty regularly, especially if we're having a hard time, is he was in some sort of a clergy group, like guys from non-denominational, blah, 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 shiny, well-branded churches. Mm-hmm. And the question for the group was like, who are you like trying to get in the doors of your church? And the first guy's like, young people. And the second guy's like artists. And the third guy's like artists and young people. And then it gets to Jacob and he goes, middle-aged divorcees. And like, that's funny and also true.
Yeah,
like,
go
yeah.
How about just anyone who will go to church? Just anybody who's willing to step through your front door. Oh my God!
I want people with lines on their faces. I'll just say that right now.
Yeah.
Let's end with this unbelievable love obituary that.
Oh my gosh, Dave! I forgot about that.
This is the kind of object lesson or case in point of everything we've been talking about today. This was sent to us by Wilson Ricketts. It was an obituary in The Economist of Cecilia Jimenez, and the title was Cecilia Jimenez, Only Meant to Be Helpful. Now, if people don't know who she is, they actually do know who she is. She died on December 25th, on Christmas, this past year. She was 94 years old, and she was a widow of the town of Borja in Spain. And this is what we learn about Cecilia. Cecilia's life was a struggle. Her two sons, Jesus and Jose, had both been born crippled. Jesus with muscular dystrophy, Jose with cerebral palsy. Jesus had died at 20, but Jose, in his 60s, still needed her full care. To bring in money, she worked in a bar. To comfort herself, she volunteered in her local church, the beautiful Santuario de la Misericordia. She loved this church. She had been married there, and her sons had received their first communion. But it had no funds, so parishioners helped out with the smaller jobs. As a painter of flowers, she would dab on a little paint where necessary in the sanctuary. The church's crown jewel was its Ecce Homo, Christ in his crown of thorns, that was painted on a pillar in the nave. It had been done in 1930 by Elias Garcia Martinez, who spent his summers in Borja and left it behind as a gift. But he had not primed the stone, so time and salt and damp from the aquifer that underlay the church had made the oil paint flake away. Much of Christ's tunic and shoulder had gone, and his sad, lovely face was disappearing. So in August 2012, Cecilia set to work. She had not exactly been authorized, but she had often touched it up a bit before. The priests knew, and nobody stopped her. The work proved harder than she thought. Once she had repainted the tunic, easy enough, she wet the whole thing with big strokes of her brush. Having hardly ever painted portraits, she needed to think about how best to do it. Then, disaster, she went off for a 2-week holiday. When she returned, the Borja Study Center had seen her unfinished work and, with the artist's family, had raised the roof. Much worse, the whole world through the internet had heard about it. Her half-done picture was everywhere, with its slit eyes, greenish flat face, and a shaggy hood of hair. People were calling it Monkey Jesus or Ecce Mono, behold the monkey. Memes were flying by the thousand. She was called a crazy old woman who couldn't paint. Cecilia was thrashed in modern style online. That world she barely knew hurt her dreadfully. She, a widow, found herself running away from the press in her own street. For days, utterly humiliated, she wept and refused to eat. She lost 6 kilos. Then, felled by panic and anxiety, she took to her bed. Yet, not so long afterwards, a wonder occurred. It was simply some flowers and a card with a nice message. More came. Then visitors began to stream into Borja, not to torment her, but to see her painting for themselves. In the first year, 40,000 people came, and in the years following, the figure settled at 20,000 people a year. The church charged €1 for entry at the start, soon raising it to 3, and set up a shop selling Ecce Homo merch. The revenue helped both the Santuario and the Sancti Spiritus Hospital for impoverished elderly folk. Although the immediate talk in 2012 had been of restoration or plain painting over, even the artist's family came at last to accept that Cecilia's version should stay. Half the profits from the shop went to her, and whatever money she did not need, she gave to muscular dystrophy charities.
Jeez.
But that was not the most satisfying part. The greatest hurt from the global firestorm had been the jibe that she was no painter. But now that perception changed. The shop at the church was also an interpretation center that took her painting seriously. Art critics, too, began to change their tune. Some found the painting's very simplicity moving, the work of a devoted believer. Don Quixote, of literary, the character, knew of a painter in Ubeda who, when asked what he was painting, would reply, "Whatever emerges." What emerged was sometimes so bizarre that he would have to put a notice beside it explaining, "This is a fox." The intrepid knight himself freely imagined in his wanderings that dissolute wenches were fair princesses, and that a dented barber's basin was the golden helmet of Mambrino. In the same way, Cecilia Jimenez imagined her portrait was suffering Jesus. So it was, and the miracles it wrought in Borja were surely firm evidence of that. I have a hard time keeping it together reading.
Yeah.
Obituary. It's so beautiful. I remember Mockingbird was around when the Monkey Jesus stuff was happening, and it was early meme culture, and how dare this person do this, terrible defacing of Jesus. It's fascinating here that it's a face, by the way. But to read the whole story, to realize that this was a suffering woman it was her devotion, it was her piety, it was her love.
And it was unfinished. She went on vacation. I had no idea.
I know. What do you think about this? Tell me. I find this to be the most touching, beautiful, hopeful story you could find. Sarah, what do you think?
Want to make a pilgrimage. Do you know what I mean? I have to see this in person before I die.
Talk about a church of cringe. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make, and also I find this icon, because that's what it is now, like incredibly moving. Like I'm just like, this is so beautiful and tender and like well-meaning. And I was fascinated by the name of the church, Misericordia. And it literally translates to the sanctuary of the pitiful heart, which feels perfect. It feels perfect. Like, might we all feel that in our own churches, like the sanctuary of the pitiful heart. Also, like, shout out to all the old ladies that keep it going at church.
Oh my gosh.
You know what?
I'd be sunk.
Sometimes they pick out the wrong carpet, and sometimes they accidentally throw out something that's been at the church for 100 years, and sometimes they low-key paint Jesus into a monkey, but we wouldn't be here without them. Okay? So
let them paint.
Let them paint. Let them cook, as my middle school girl says.
I was talking to a friend yesterday who I used to be in ministry with, and he has a church, and he said he only has one retired person in his church. And I was like, how do you survive?
How do you do anything?
Oh my God. Like our place would crumble into the ground immediately.
Yeah.
It is such a word of hope. When you're trying to do something beautiful, kind of because you're trying to honor God, but a lot of because of your own ego and because of your own performance mentality and whatever. And just a powerful reminder that like God does God things, man. God does God things, and he ain't going to stop doing them.
And this is what the work of God in the world looks like.
Yes.
To me.
Yes. Yes.
And both one of her sons had died, and the other one she was still taking care of. And
come on now.
This money ended up funding the Institute for Muscular Dystrophy.
Also, can we just stop with when she felt like she had enough money? I was like, whoever says that, they're like, oh, I have enough money, I'll give this away. No one does that. Like, it's incredible. I at least need a t-shirt. Like, I'm just like, I at least need a t-shirt,
I mean, we could go. We should have a pilgrimage, and we should get a bunch of merch, and just it has a whole new meaning for me.
Yeah.
Mockingbird 2027 is
yes. This is I would love if this was the first like overseas pilgrimage.
International.
This would be
ministry.
very our vibe, Dave. I'm just saying right now, like I don't want to go to Israel. I don't need to go see Notre Dame.
The sanctuary.
I want to go here.
Heart.
You're so right.
Yes. Are you kidding? Yes.
2027 is our 20th anniversry as an
Oh
organization.
my God, guys. This is
on?
writing itself.
How is that possible?
This is writing itself.
Well, let's stay there. We will link to
old.
all of these things, as well as information about the conference and the picture, that the painting of Cecilia's. We will definitely include it there. But we'll stop now, and we'll regroup soon. And I know you guys are going to be together, but thank you for sticking around the cringy mocking cast.
You're welcome.
Yes. All right.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Remember, you can find us on the web at www.mbird.com. And we'd always love to hear from you at info@mbird.com. Audio production for the Mockingcast is provided by TJ Hester. And if you like what you've heard, please drop over to iTunes and leave us a rating or review. Until next time.